Hello, everyone, and welcome to an all-new episode of Deep Cuts Live. I'm your host, Antoine Reid, and today we're going to be speaking to, we actually have two guests. I know we didn't publicize two guests, but we were lucky enough to have two guests here today. So we have Sébastien from Cavalier Cigars and also Brian from Cavalier Cigars. So this is a brand that I know a lot of people know about. They have very interesting blends, very interesting products. So I'm looking forward to spending an hour speaking to them about what they're doing and what's going on with Cavalier. So let me bring on our guests. Hey, guys.
Hey, Antoine.
Hey, what's up, Antoine? Hey, everybody. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, like I said, thank you for coming on today. And you were telling me that you're in Honduras. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're currently actually sitting at the factory in Dundee. So we were joking a little bit around, just saying that we hope the electricity doesn't go away. It's been a kind of a classic these days.
Yeah. So for those of you watching live, if they do cut out, just hang in there. I'll wait for them to kind of come back in, and we'll go from there though. But hopefully
we should be good. Yeah. They didn't announce anything, so we should be good. Crossing fingers.
Yeah. So it's funny because I followed you on Instagram, which I follow as many cigar brands as I can. So I've seen what you kind of do. I got an idea, and when I interview different people, I ask them stuff, and I forget who it was. I want to say it was maybe Vlad from Lampert, who works with Lampert and who works with Costagli, who was maybe I think it was him who was telling me about you and how if it wasn't him, it was somebody very similar to position wise about how you kind of gave him a blend one time to try and it was so different. And so I wanted to definitely get into your whole approach to blending, because whether it was him or not, I've heard very interesting things about how you approach blending and flavor profiles, and especially with all today's news about flavors, the different side of flavors in the cigar industry. I think there's a lot to talk about. So before we get into the talk about the actual blends, could you each introduce yourself and talk a little bit about who you are and what role you hold within Cavalier?
So, my name is Sébastien. I'm the founder of Cavalier and co-founder of the factory we're sitting at right now, which is FCT, Fabrica, Centroamericana, Tabaco, in Dundee, Honduras. And my old doppelganger there is, I'll let him do the introduction.
No, go ahead. Since you called me old.
I started well, right?
I'm Brian Motola, and I'm also partnered with Sébastien on both the brand and in the factory as well.
So Brian and I opened the factory a little bit ago. Slightly over a year ago now.
It's been 14 months
14
now.
months,
almost 15 months now.
Something like that. And about now 2-3 months ago, Brian joined us on the Cavalier side too. And through that process of joining us and taking a position with us, which is largely related to sales, but other aspects too of the company, also got entered into that partnership with us and became partner with the brand. I think it's something that made a lot of sense to us.
So obviously I know I've been working with you both to kind of write a little bit of a story about you all. So I know I've done a little bit of research on you all, so I know a little bit of your backstory, but I know that there are going to be people who watch this or listen to this who may not be as familiar with Cavalier. So Sébastien, you have such an interesting story about how you got into the cigar industry. So just talk about what led you to cigars in general, and then what inspired you to kind of leave behind your corporate job to pursue cigars full time.
So first of all, before starting, for some reason, now that we're live, of course, I'm starting to get messages, so my phone is just vibrating and moving around. So we'll figure it out. I hope it stops, but sorry if it makes a little bit of noise. That's it's the beauty of every time you get suddenly something you really need to do and you need peace for it, everything goes so crazy. But yeah, it's I didn't. The thing I think is the essence of it is I really didn't have any background in the industry. I was born and raised in Switzerland. Nobody around in my family was cigar smoker or anything, so it was a very distant world for me. And in general, I've not at the time I've not had the chance to just be born in that knowledge and that industry and have the chance to know and grow with it and get to learn very early on about it. But I got kind of intrigued about cigars when I was in my early 20s, and got so much into it that I did leave my corporate job when I was 22 at the time, and kind of sold everything, took a plane ticket to Central America, and said, "Yeah, we'll see what happens." With the hope in mind that I could figure out a way or another to get to learn about tobacco, get to learn about the industry, and try to see if it was really as attractive to me as I thought it was. But there's a big difference between theory, reading, and enjoying sitting down, having a cigar, and actually making it, your life, basically, your career, your life, and everything. So I decided to take that chance, and I moved to Honduras. Some funky things happened in the way here. I didn't know anything about really the countries around here. I just knew they were growing tobacco, rolling cigars, and I knew a little bit about historical facts about the area. But young me, very stuff I would not do anymore. I think young me just coming here and saying, English is gonna be enough." That was a pretty first big mistake, I think. So arriving here, I remember they lost my luggage in Panama before I even arrived in Honduras. Which, Panama, you're like, yeah, that's international. You should have everybody speaking English there, right? Yeah. So they lose my luggage. I go to the counter. I'm like, "Hello, I'm sorry. I think luggage got lost. Can you help me with that?" And the guy just looks at me with big eyes and he's like, tells me a paper, didn't speak English, just spoke Spanish and everything. I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna be really funky." Getting if the guy in the airport in Panama International Airport could not speak English to me, I was like, "What is it gonna be in Honduras?" And it was pretty much so. People mainly speak Spanish, very few speak English. But the beauty of it is it forced me to actually learn not only the culture here and have a chance to learn about tobacco, but it also taught me a complete new language to me. And I actually would rather my Spanish is actually much better than my English right now. So for the fun fact, right? One just reversed. But yeah, I moved here. Was 22 years old, in the city I'm in, Danley right now. I spent, I got very, very lucky at time. I had not much, to know and to look for. But lucky enough, I fell in the hands of, an amazing family and amazing people. The first person to pick me up here was in Danley when arriving a little randomly. Was someone called Aline Perez. Aline Perez, I didn't know at the time, is very, very closely related to the Plasencia family. And so, that first day between Nadine and meeting Nestor Sr. and everything was pretty impressive. And it really went from there. They saw I was a kid. They saw I was an excited kid. I wanted to see, look, it was like a candy store kind of situation. And lucky enough, they just offered to open their doors to me and for me to stay as long as I wanted to learn. And so I obviously took that opportunity, and everything started there a couple of years ago now.
And before we go forward with more of your story, Brian, could you share how you also got started in the industry?
So I got started in the industry by meeting Dion Giolito, and we became friends. And I used to sit in his cigar shop in Reno and talk to him about, everything. I mean, not just cigars, but I talked to him about a lot of things. And then one day he just said to me, "Hey, maybe you take a look at joining my company." And my kids were grown. I was a single dad, so I always kind of played it safe while I was raising my kids, and they were grown, and it just seemed like the right time. And so I jumped in, with both feet. Like everything I've ever done in my life, I didn't just, say, well, let me try it out, see if it works. I've been a cigar smoker for years. I started smoking, I think, probably at the age of 16. I lived through the cigar boom, which he was just born when it happened. So, I actually lived through that. And I remember, the quality going to hell and the prices going up during the cigar boom of the 90s. And I was like, what happened to this great world that I was enjoying by myself? It felt like. And so I jumped in, and then I met Sebastian about 4 years ago in Virginia, and we just clicked. You meet people in life all the time, but sometimes you meet people and you go, there's a little bit more to this. So we took the venture into the factory so we started building during COVID, right? Like while the world was trying to figure out what was happening and is the end coming, or where are we? We're building a factory in Honduras. Yeah. So, it just was a great relationship from the start. So that's much how I got in, and we're just having a good time. I mean, this factory is amazing. We don't want to leave when we come.
Yeah, no, as Brian said, it's pretty interesting. A lot of people come and go in life, but I think out of the fact that we kind of look similar, I think we had the same problem and stuff happened. Just a couple of years of difference, but that's it. Yeah, I just said you were old.
Again.
But in general, I really think that was one of those very special times when everything clicked and we started, get to know each other better and see that we had very common visions in life and way of looking at things. And we also understood very quickly after that there could be synergies and step by step some stuff happened. We started first, we made that factory together, and obviously we've been very lucky to move into Illusion's fulfillment facility as first brand that they opened the doors for, which Illusion for me was always it's a fun industry. It's a brand I was always looked up, I was always very, very intrigued and interested in Dion's work and how he was looking at tobacco, which is very different from me. But I think it's very delicate, it's very, very refined, and so got that chance through those conversations with Brian to get into the factory, and later on, things just moved towards the situation where we're in now, where we work on a daily basis together.
So when you got into the industry, I know you had to learn a lot about the industry. Like it wasn't like you were one of the next generation of a family that had always done this for generation after generation, and you were coming in, like I said, trying to learn as a newcomer. So I know the Placencias kind of took you under their wing.
Yeah, it
you
was.
Kind of taught
It's an interesting. Oh, Wi-Fi is going all crazy. I'm sorry about that.
That's fine.
We didn't catch that part.
Oh, I was just saying, I know the Placencias
didn't catch
and took you under their wing when you first kind of was trying to learn about the industry.
Yeah, one thing to know about this industry, I think, is it takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of time to learn. There is no school. There is no one way to learn. The only way to, there is no, oh, I'll go there, I'll learn, I'll be able to understand this industry. It's a very unique industry for that. And the only actual way to learn is be hands-on. You just have to go and try and look and try to find solutions and find people that know and are willing to share. And lucky enough, this industry is, I think, full of people that are happy to share and want to carry on that message and everything. So I kind of fell under that amazing family. It was a lot of time with Adim, but also amazing quality time with Nestor and his three sons and son Andres, Jose Luis, everybody, and in general the whole family. I mean, just in general the whole family, the whole group of Plasencia is being an extreme, a very lucky kind of moment in life for me, because I don't think there is many other other families or companies in this industry that could teach as much as they can, right? They're I think the one of these families you wish you were born in if you want to be in this industry. It's what it is. Let's be honest.
Uh-huh.
So when you can learn from them, it's something I'll never forget, and it's something that I will always be extremely grateful for. And up to this day, they're still here and still helping, and still they've never ever failed helping ever, and they never owed anything. They never owed. It's not like you. It's one of these situations where normally in life, when people give you that much support, they usually owe you something, right? And in their case, it's always been just because they have a huge heart. So it's one of these things. There's hardly enough good words and good things to say about this and this industry and this kind of things that happen here. So yeah, I feel a bit under them. And I said, spend a lot of time with Adine here, about a year in Honduras, and just spending time at factories. Just the only way I'll never forget that story. Getting the first day into Adine's operation at the time, and we were talking about tobacco, and I was all excited. And I was like, it's pretty cool. It seems like you've been pretty interested. You've learned quite a bit of things from that far. And we got into the factory. He calls someone. He's like, bring me this and that. And me kind of not understanding at all what he was saying, but just figured they were. So the guy comes back with 2 leaves of tobacco. And Adine takes them, hands them to me. And now I don't remember if it was Seco, Viso, Viso Ligero, Seco Ligero, whatever it was. And he said, let's say it was Seco, Viso Seco, and one Viso, one Seco. He gave me the 2 leaves. And he was like, which one is a Seco, which one is a Viso? And I remember looking at him, and I was like, oh. Well, I literally answered, well, it's tobacco. And he looked at me, he laughed, and he said, well, you're gonna learn. So, it just told me literally all that theory that you were talking about. That was funny, but let me show you how this industry works. And so that was the beauty. That's the first day. That's where it started. And I laughed about it actually 2-3 days ago here at the factory, because we were working with tobacco and stuff, and someone hands me twice during some tobaccos we were revising without even looking at it. You feel, you know your tobaccos, you feel the textures, you know what you have in your hand. And I just tell the person, I'm like, there are 2 leaves there, and they were not correctly despegadas, so they were sticking together, or 2 leaves. And I just turned my head, and it's stuff that just made me think back there, and I would have just looked at it and said it's tobacco. So little things like these. Once again, there is no school. The only way is get your hands on, and that's always the one thing that I think is key for anybody looking at this industry and wanting to really caring about it. Should be hands on, and should be it's probably one of the main reasons why we have the factory now too.
And Brian, I'm sure working with Dion, you learned a bit about tobacco as well, and cigar making and blending.
Oh, it's fascinating, the world, right, that we live in. And I think, you never stop learning every day. There's always something new to see and experience. And it's an amazing world in that aspect, because there is, like Sebastian said, there's no definitive book you can read. There's no school you can go to. It's just about watching the people you surround yourself with and learning from them, and watching. Like our factory general manager is an absolutely amazing guy. I mean, I have a little bit of a language barrier, because unlike Sebastian, I don't speak 5 languages. There's a little bit of a language barrier, and it's one of the things that I want to do, is be able to really get into his brain to see what he's thinking about, how he approaches it. Same thing with Sebastian. I just watch, and I I observe, and I did the same thing with Dion. Just watch and observe and see how they approach their craft, and it's amazing. It
And
really is amazing.
Let's be honest, Dion is probably one of the best schools in terms of blending and palate, right?
Oh yeah,
His
without a
palate
doubt.
is very, very, very defined and very, very delicate. Probably one of the most delicate palates that we have to this day in the industry, I think. So, yeah, it's definitely it was. I mean, for having Brian join us after such another, prestigious brand and well renowned, cigar maker was something that meant a lot to us. Obviously, it brings a lot of additional knowledge, understanding, and everything that, as Brian said, you can't stop learning, right? And you need to fill those gaps with people that know different aspects that you might not know, or bring some more to the table to continue advancing and continue growing that.
I have a question for you that I wanted to ask you, and I can't believe I never asked you. Why Honduras?
That's funny.
That's a good question. Yeah, like out of all the cigar making countries out there, the Dominican and
Nicaragua,
and like, why did you choose Honduras?
And remember, so I was born in Switzerland, so Cuba is open. I've traveled there. It's not something that was not an option either. Obviously, you can't really do much about it, but at least going and discovering, which was interesting too. That was part of the plan. But to be completely honest, my first stop, I wanted it to be Cuba or the DR. So I took an open ticket, just one way. I just decided to go, and I would figure out when it was time to come back home. So I wanted to fly to or the DR or to or to Cuba. And I went to the agent that helped me book and everything at the time. So I had, once again, no fucking idea what I was doing, to be honest. And the guy was like, "Yeah, sure, but it's hurricane season, so I don't really recommend that." What were the two other countries? Nicaragua or Honduras? And he just randomly said, "Well, we'll book a flight to Honduras." Then I was like, "Well, okay." And that's really what happened. Honduras was just
an option.
Just an option, and something that ended up being picked by someone randomly in my life. It was not me, the plan, and it's something I did. I spent time in Nicaragua, I spent time in the DR, I spent time in Cuba, Costa Rica, different countries, right? But the first day here in Danlí changed everything. It probably was, in a way, a good thing. No, more than probably, it was just a good thing. Just fate, luck sometimes. Came here and happened to meet the right people and just made this my home instead of Nicaragua or instead of DR or something like this, which obviously nowadays, for example, most people turn immediately to Nicaragua. And I'm actually very happy it's not the case. It makes it special to me. It makes it, Dani really is a special place. The people here are amazing. There are big players from the industry here and everything, and Honduras produces a lot of handmade cigars a year. A lot of tobacco. Hamastran was named the farm of Central America at the time. It's a huge tobacco growing area. But history and different things, politics and different things at the time made that a lot of manufacturers turned to Nicaragua instead of Honduras, and even nowadays. It's honestly easier to get licensing and everything and permits to open a factory, for example, in Nicaragua than it is here in Honduras. But Honduras is just because of what happened. The random no, it's hurricane season. You should go to the land, or what were the other countries? Nicaragua, Honduras. Okay, go to Honduras. Just because of that quick 2-minute discussion, Honduras became what it is to me today, what it is to us, and that made Cavalier, that made everything that changed our lives. So, a lot of us.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing how life comes at you like that, and you just, because I said to you 2 nights ago in the restaurant or wherever we were in the bar, and I said, if you would ask me if I'd be sitting in Honduras 10 years ago, I would have told you no way.
Yeah.
But because we met up and now here we are, and because of a random act, we're here.
It was literally because of like a random multi-vendor.
Okay, I can go now. Thanks for having me. I got my question answered.
Yeah, I mean, but it is interesting because maybe if you had not gone to Honduras when you did, you would have ended up there eventually. But you have to wonder, would you have met the same people in that same sequence? And it seems like the people that you were there in the right place at the right time. So it makes you wonder, would you have met, those people that help guide you along and said, you need to speak to this person, or you need to go to this factory, or you need to go look at here. And like I said, you probably would have ended up in Honduras, but it would completely have been just, one of those multiverse situations where, it might have happened like 5 years later, or you might have still been like looking for that, those connections and that introduction to the Placencia family especially seems to be that catalyst that gave you that place to explore and to figure things out before you started Cavalier.
Yeah, and it's once again, I've said it several times. I think today is the easiest day to start a cigar brand, right? Especially when you're in the U.S., you'll always find someone that knows someone that knows someone that has a brand or has seen a rep or something, and you'll find someone that's going to make cigars for you. But let's face it. For me, this is a huge no-go. It's something, and it's that's a really personal thing. I think it's an industry. It's a small family. It's good to be part of it, and to be part of it, it's good to be involved in it, right? And more than that, once again, there is no school. There is no, books never going to tell you what you have to know, and you have to. There's one thing that I can't even start to explain here, but the fact of knowing everybody here, the time spent, the people, the relationship, the feeling we have, you take the size of our factory, we're shy under 100 people working. It's every single person here, every single face is a face we're familiar with, and every single action they're taking a day to make what we need, what we need done, and them understanding why and how and everything happens because, it only happens if you're completely involved, and it adds so much value because once you understand, the people behind, and when I say the people behind, I never mean any of us brand owners or founders or sales directors or stuff like this. I really mean the people behind, the people that you don't see, the people that make it happen. We should just be considered messengers of their work in a way. We just message it differently, one from each other. We work a little differently, one from each other with tobaccos and everything. But they are the ones that are the heart of this industry. But that whole thing only happens when you take that chance and spend a little time around the people down here. It just adds so much dimension to the final product.
And when you started Cavalier, did you know what you wanted it to be, or what you wanted it to become, and what you wanted to accomplish, or were you kind of just figuring things out as you were going along? Like, what was there a plan?
Oh, I was laughing a couple of these last weeks with Brian. I was like, I'm sorry for the words, but we've been winging this shit so hard for the first couple of years. It's funny. Tobacco is something that you'll never start learning from and about, but there is a point where you know that you can work with it, right? So I felt lucky enough to be at that point where I had my own take on tobacco. I had my own vision of tobacco and everything. So this part was pretty much under control. And then with, backup from amazing people that have the 150 years of, history and stuff like this. But the whole rest, I had never, run a company before that. I had never managed, people. I had never, nothing. I didn't know anything of this, so definitely winged it pretty hard, and then step by step, with a little bit of luck, starting to get the right people coming around, and my wife that started very early on. She was not my wife at the time, but working and helping me. She's actually born and raised here in Danlí, and then, slowly but surely more and more people coming on board and being part of the team. And I said, 6 years later, you look at a team that's shy under 100 people. So now we're pretty confident about what we do and where we go. But I can completely be honest and fine with myself saying that, I had no idea. I just knew I wanted to do it. I just knew I would figure out a way to do it. I just really didn't know how it would happen. And, things just come together, I think.
So what was that first Cavalier blend that you worked on or release that you worked on?
So, that came. I can still tell you today that the process started. So it was. I had been here for a couple of months already and everything, and I started being more confident about the work here, rolling, packaging, and all those kind of things. Starting to understand more, have spent days and days and weeks, and so doing all those activities with the employees of the factories. Started being confident about it, and once again, I was 22, 23 at the time, and I had already been given a chance to learn, so I didn't feel like I was in a position to ask for anything, and I didn't know how it was. So that was New Year's Eve at Ian's house, which is where we're sitting right now, actually, which turned into the factory now. In an area called El Zarzal, a nice residential area of Danby, with all the family, only Cubans with music, dancing, and a weird Swiss guy sitting on a chair and having some drinks and some food. And I remember Adine coming back to me during that day and looking at me and just saying, "Hey, if you want to do something about what you learn, if you want to do something about it, we'll help you. We're gonna make it. We'll be with you and we'll help you do it." And I just said, okay. It was, at the end of every year, the factories here close for 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how the workload is. And so it was New Year. They were supposed to be closed 2 more weeks. And he said, okay, I'll call someone. One day there's going to be someone at the factories, production manager, a couple of other people will prepare you some tobaccos. Tell us what you want, what you're thinking of. We'll let you play around with it. I'll be there with you. And we went to the factory on Monday morning. Factory closed except for those couple of people helping us. And with the time I had worked a little bit with tobacco down there and started understanding what they, the key tobaccos they were using and the ones that, I was getting more and more familiar with. I started thinking, what is it going to have to take to create what I had in mind at the time? And coming from Europe, growing up in Europe, I was used to nothing very Maduro, nothing very heavier, very dark in flavor and stuff like this, flavor profile. So I was much more orientated to, milder but nicely layered in flavors, complex Habano, Criollo kind of blends and things like this. So started working and had a pretty clear idea where I wanted to go, and we ended up, with what today, or what people that know us know today as the White Series. So which is the white boxes, white and gold boxes with the white band and the gold diamond under the white band, which is still that same mild to medium cigar that has no ligero in it. It's purely secos and visos. It's a very very low priming Habano wrapper, Connecticut binder, and then fillers from Paraguay, Dominican Republic, and Nicaragua. So you have that same blend that was that first creation at the time. That the spirit or the mindset that I had at the time, or my approach of cigars, translated into that cigar.
And Brian, do you remember the first time you smoked a Cavalier cigar, and what was your reaction?
I did. It was the White Series, actually, and it was before I knew Sebastian. And I had it, and you could tell that it was very indicative of where he came from as far as cigars go. It's complex, it's layered and flavored, but on that medium, mild side, and but I remember saying to somebody, "Hey, there's something here," and then I got to meet him like a couple of months later, and to talk to the guy, it all made sense because it's funny how cigar blends reflect the personalities of the people blending them. And so he was exactly what I expected him to be like. And
I don't really, just to interrupt him, I really don't know how to take this one, but
no,
I'll just give it a pass, I guess.
No, and then as our friendship evolved, I started to smoke more and more of his cigars, and the next phase of his blending was, I would imagine, was very challenging for him because it was very unlike what he grew up with and had around him smoking. So the USA exclusive and the black had to be a very challenging project.
It was very different, and it's funny because I really think my way of looking at tobacco and working with tobacco has changed a lot through time. Every time that something else comes out that we put out, it kind of it is a reflection of some focus that I've had or something. It's just a general feeling. It's not just creating, oh, let's put another product on the market. It really is a reflection, and you can see it. I mean, we've not pushed 300 different core lines out. It really reflects a time frame that I need, with a certain obsession for usually one tobacco. And the last one was a very good example. For example, with the Jalapa, the Liso Jalapa. I kind of usually get obsessed about that one tobacco, kind of have it to process it for quite a bit of time, and a couple of months in, start working with it to get towards where I think the result should be. And that just makes that the portfolio, all the core we have, one from each other, are complete, distinct offerings. With, I think there is a certain signature in there because there are things that didn't change. I always work mainly with VSOs and stuff like this. There are things that are very key to my way of looking at tobacco, but it still reflects different times in my life around tobacco and my life around the cigar industry. And I think the people I meet, the other things I see in the market, the other cigar makers, and the experiences you get through, their way of expressing tobacco, and which is, I think, really interesting, really interesting, because everybody I think nowadays knows that we're in a kind of golden age, right? It's been over probably more than a decade now that there has been more and more and more cigar makers, brand that evolved to trying to bring the best they could with the best tobacco they could find, or process, or whatever the process is. And it's challenging to stay on top of that game, but it's also very interesting because it refreshes your mind on a regular basis, and suddenly you fall on tobacco, you're like, oh, now I need to think about this. I need to look at what that means for me, and if there is a way I can do something about it. And I can tell you that there's been some I've never been able to crack. There's been stuff like Connecticut broadleaf wrapper, that there is still a production sitting at an old factory that's never going to see the light of the day, because I thought I had cracked that wrapper with that blend, and I let it rest a little bit, and it turned into something that I would not give a raccoon to smoke, probably. Let's put it that way. So it's just there. It just stays, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Now, I know in the cigar lifestyle and the cigar industry, it's one thing to have a product, but if you don't have a community built around your brand, you're kind of lost. Like, you don't have much room to go. You can have the best product in the world, but you need that following. And I know, Brian, you're used to seeing that because all the Illusione, smokers are just fanatic about Dion. They're fanatic about the cigars. And you just think of all the other brands in the industry the same way. So how have you gone about building that community or building that experience around Cavalier? And how would you define what the Cavalier experience is?
So it's really interesting that you use that word experience, because when you come right down to it, we don't sell cigars, we sell experiences, right?
Mhm.
And actually, you asking me when I first smoked my first Cavalier brought me immediately back to that moment, right? It was the experience that I remember. And actually, somebody gave me that cigar. They said, "Here, you ought to try this." And that's what's beautiful about this industry. So, the Cavalier experience, starts pretty much here at the factory, and the way we've built this family here. We've taken kind of a Western philosophy of leadership and applied it into a third world factory. And it's a little bit of a different change. And then as far as the brand goes, um, the following and the people that have enjoyed the Cavalier experience, it's mainly attributed to Sebastian and his efforts here with his blending skills. Um, you have to deliver a product that, far exceeds expectation, and also the quality needs to exceed the price point. Which, if you can deliver that, you have a winning scenario on your hands. And so, we just really build our community, and as part of our family. I mean, everybody who smokes, we try to interact with people as much as we can on social media. Um, just getting out there and just, creating the experience behind the brand, giving them the story. I mean, Sebastian's story is amazing. And, people that haven't heard it need to hear it, because it's amazing. I mean, who at 22, I know I didn't do it, at 22, leaves your home and comes to Honduras, of all places. I mean, Geneva, Switzerland, Danley, Honduras. I mean, they're so polar opposite, but that's a huge quantum leap to take of faith. And to just tell people that story and how it all evolved. And then the factory made a big difference for the brand. I mean, it was really, at that point, we began to control our future. And so, we can deliver that experience day in and day out for people that join the Cavalier family.
Yeah, I think one of the first focuses we've had when we started hiring people was communication, right? We we needed people to help us with other aspects, and we knew it. But communication, I think, is really important in terms of social media, whatever it is, being able to interact with people, because when people take the time to reach out, when people take the time to share experiences about what uh, you know has been created through Cavalier and everything. We felt that it was absolutely key and primordial to start there, to start with putting the team in place, so that people like Sarah now can or Wes can communicate and answer to these to, and give back the time that has been given to us, the chances that have been given to us and everything, and just say thank you sometimes simply. I think that's really key to it. And Wes, for example, on the hard, old school marketing side of things, has also helped us a lot to see, because a brand is like a kid, right? It's born at some point. It looks like a baby when it's born. There is a lot of things to fix and to learn and to grow, and it stands up, falls again, stands up, falls again, and so on, until it walks and starts, adolescence, and does some other mistakes, and discovers who that brand. The brand has to be a separate person, right? And we thanks to the work with Wes and everything, See, that's the beauty of having a team in the office next door that just slap the doors. She's just looking at us like, ay, Anelis, gracias. Now you all know her name, Anelis. She's actually our head of HR here at the factory.
And she's amazing.
Yeah,
She is amazing.
she's a very, very kind person. A little brutal with doors, but very kind person. And it's helped us discover that the brand has a certain bipolarity to it. It's always been, the first look at it is very elegant. You have the gold diamond. You have very classic, clean presentations, but it always has a kind of artsy background, nearly a little more street kind of artsy background. So it really had that personality, and so it helped us understand to put that personality out, and I think made it also more reliable for people. I mean, people can relate to. We all have, very opposite things. Usually, we like and we like to tend and do, and I think it made it more of an appealing, understandable and more appealing thing than just being a product, right? So a lot of things like this, we've been very, very focused on that early on, as soon as we could, and then started developing from there.
And in terms of the factory, I know when we were speaking offline, through email about the story that we're working on, you were talking about with the factory that you wanted to approach it with a modern kind of Western approach. So can you define like what that is? Because I think a lot of people out there are, especially after the pandemic, they're starting their own businesses. They're kind of seeing now with the pandemic how what's the word? How advantage, what advantage they kind of get from having their own factory and controlling that production to kind of and deal with the supply chain issue. So what is that approach to making the factory? Because even though the factory's in Honduras, that doesn't mean obviously that it has to operate like a Honduran factory. You have to, obviously you figured it out pretty early on that it needs to operate in a completely different manner. So what was that approach?
Well, I think the biggest shift is, in business, people use the word management and manager, and we use words like leadership and leader. I think it's putting the key people in place that know the difference, right? They know how to lead people versus managing them. Like you manage your finances, or you manage your exercise routine. You lead people and you develop them, and you realize the strengths that they have and the weaknesses they have, and you utilize their strengths and you improve on their weaknesses. So the key difference here is we have leaders in all the departments that run the factory. We have different departments. We have, the production floor has a leader. And, to what Sebastian said, it all comes down to how you communicate what you need to accomplish in the vision. And if you're going to manage people, generally you're behind them telling them what they did wrong. And if you're going to lead them, you're out in front of them telling them what they're going to do right. And so that's the huge impact that taking that Western style of leadership has brought to the factory. And then also giving people input too. Somebody asked us last night, how much input do people in the factory have? And, they have all the input in the world, if they see something or if they have an idea, whether it's even about a blend, it's like, hey, I really think this cigar could be better if we put this into it. So it's just that communication and listening skills and leadership that makes the difference.
And I think, if I may just add on that, there are several things that changed in the world lately, and some, I think some shifts happened that are happening and had to happen. I think the world turned into companies that were there just for quick profit, quick turnarounds, and the rest of it doesn't matter. We need to make this happen, and sorry for the word, but fuck the rest of the things, right? And I think the world kind of is waking up and is understanding that how people feel when they're at work. We all, I mean, anybody in this world spends probably at least 80% of their time, 70-80% of their time at work, their entire life. So what is it if you have to wake up every morning and can't wait for the weekend to be there, can't wait for the next holidays, can't wait. We all like holidays, don't get me wrong, right? That's never going to change. We're human, but there is a way when it becomes that predominant, when it becomes so upfront in people's minds that you understand it's not right? And one key when we selected the two people that were about to build the team around them and the departments, there were two key aspects that we talked about, and that their job was to comply with. And the first one was how people would feel working here, and the ambience, right? The work ethic, the ambient, and everything. And the second one was service. The thing that you will see if you walk through our factory right now is nobody's heads down. Everybody's going to look at you and smile. Everybody's going to try to talk to you. It's actually a bit of a problem when you come in the morning and say hi to everybody, because it takes you like 45 minutes. And because you're half rude and have to go, right? But that's what we wanted. We want the people. The best example I have, some of the best examples I have is first is I'll take one name, Jessica. Jessica is our is if you want, the head of the packaging section department. And so she was one of the people that taught me how to put cigars in cellos when I first learned. She had had that job for 18 years in that one factory. She had a stable life. She had nothing to, there was nothing, no reason to change. She had been there for so long. The day she learned that we were opening, she quit that job and came.
Wow.
And she's not the only one. There are people here that taught me how to roll. There are people here that the first days I was in Honduras trying to understand what the hell they were doing and trying to tell that to me in Spanish, 25 different ways to help me pick up at least a word or two. The people that basically taught me how to speak Spanish left jobs they had and jumped on board with us. New company, no security the first, you don't know. We could have crashed the first month. We had no idea. They didn't even think about it. 10 years, 15 years, 25 years. The head of our production has over 25 years of experience. He was not working in tobacco anymore because he had no financial needs for it. And when we called, he was like, "Well, sure, I'll be there." And he's been there ever since. It's stuff like this that really echoes, I think, for me. That's what I think we mean by that more modern Western world approach, is how do we make sure that people have a smile on their face? Yes, it's work. Yes, there is standards to meet. Yes, there are, it's what it is. But it doesn't mean that it can't be a good environment. So that was very important. And I think another quick example was last time Brian came in. So there's a pair that rolls only Salomones all day long, and that's all they do. They're very good at it, and they've been set on that Vitolas ever since we opened the factory. And she had not seen Brian for a couple of months, and she saw him come in, didn't say anything. She took out of her time, because they have tareas, right? They have a certain amount of cigars they have to make a day. She took just time out of her day to actually make a random custom barber pulse Salomones, and just stood up, gave it to Brian, and left. Who asked for it? Nobody asked for it.
No.
And it's not something, those kind of little things just
They're
mean
huge.
the world for us,
They're
because it
huge.
means that people are happy, and that's really what it is.
To give you another example real quick, if we may tell you another story. The factory used to open at 7 o'clock. Go ahead, you tell the story. We used to
It's
open at
so
7
bad.
o'clock, and people would be outside the factory at 6:30 in the morning, waiting to come to work. And so then we decided we would open at 6:30. Well, then people were sitting outside at 6 o'clock, and so on, and it got to the point where it was almost 5:30 in the morning.
So it got to the point where some of the people would come in to open the doors at 6. They were like, okay, 6, but no more. Not at 6. Under 6, we're not here. It's not okay. So they came in and they started coming at 5:30. So they told them, okay, stop. You do whatever you want, but we're not opening before 6. And so the person that comes in earliest now his name is David. And I talked to him the other day. I was like, this was really crazy, right? He's like, no, I'm actually opening at 5:30 now because it broke my heart. They were always there at 5:30 in the morning. So the factory opens at 5:30 in the morning because
Wow.
people would come earlier. When usually you tell people to come to work and at like 8, between 8 and 8:30, you give them a window, they'll be here at 8:40, right? No, here you tell them 7, they come half an hour earlier to see if they can get in. It's ridiculous. It's
Look, we have a philosophy that, people deserve to be happy in their personal life. They also deserve to be happy while they're at work. There's so many people in this world, in corporations today, that are absolutely miserable from the minute they arrive to the minute they go home, and then they're happy with their personal life. Well, I think people deserve to be happy on both fronts. That's really important to us. That doesn't mean that there aren't, standards, and there aren't. It just makes achieving those goals that much easier when the people that you've surrounded yourself and work with you are happy to be here. It makes all the difference in the world. You don't have any angry rolled cigars coming out of our factory. It makes a big difference. It makes accomplishing goals and building for the future that much easier when you put a team in place that is dedicated to, the well-being and the happiness of the people here. So that's really important to us.
And I definitely agree with that, because whenever people don't factor in the emotional part of working, so however you're feeling when you're working or when you come to work or with whatever you do, obviously that emotion is going to get embedded in that product. So the last thing you want people to be is angry or tired or, like you said, working for the weekend, because obviously that feeling and that vibe is going to be part of that, your blend, which is not an ingredient that you want.
No, and we're talking about something is completely handmade that depends on that, right? It really does. We don't. Most of the time, most people, nobody really thinks of it, I think, and it really does. It's not machine. It's not, if you're angry in the morning, you don't just pull a button and let it roll. You actually have to sit there and make the thing that you have to do happen. So it's, little things, but it becomes more of little side stories, but it's really something that matters for us and makes a whole difference.
As we come towards the end of our hour together, I have a final question for each of you. So for Brian, your final question is, somebody comes to you and they want to start a new business. What's your advice to them to get started? Like, how should they get started?
So, starting a new business. I'm sorry. Starting a new business
That's how I get treated at work.
Starting a new business is really a huge responsibility, and the thing that I can really advise people on is, if your work business is going to require human resources and people to make it successful, look beyond the person that is working in your company and look to their family, because it's one of the things I told Sébastien about when we started here. I said, the 100 people that we have working with us here at the factory, they have 4 or 5 people at home that rely on this job, this income. So always look beyond what's in front of you. You may think, okay, I'm going to give this business a try, and I'm going to hire 10, 15, 20, 100, whatever the number is. But always remember that those people rely on that to make a living, and there's people at home that rely on them as well. So take that very seriously in how you're going to go about executing on your business plan. Because a business plan is just paper, people are people, and you have to look at that aspect of the business and see if what you're structuring can sustain itself and run the long game. It's not a flick this light switch on and you start making money. It's the long game. You're in it for the long road, and be part of it, be present, and always lead. And when things are bad, look in the mirror. When things are good, look out the window and say, look at what the people here have accomplished. When things are all messed up, look in the mirror, because generally it starts with you first. And so that would be the advice I would give them. Look forward, always look beyond what's in front of you, what's on the next hill, not the hill in front of you. And always keep in mind that the people that join your business rely on that, and there's people that rely on them. So take it very seriously and think it through.
And Sebastian, your question is, what's your tips for those people who find themselves in a leadership position? Like, do you have a number one tip for people who are kind of leading companies or leading effort projects or whatever it is?
I don't know if it's a tip, and I don't know if I'm in a position to give any tips, to be honest. But one thing that I think is absolutely key, and has been for me, and is always, is surround yourself with the right people. Surround yourself, know what you can do and know what you can't do, and invest in people around you, because it's, again, not in a selfish way, just for me, but what do we need to make it work? It's all about knowing where your limits are, what you can do. I really think, I can't, there is no way I can do Cavalier today without the 100 people that are here. Find those 100 people. But, it took a year. It took a year to find it took a year for Brian to take that position. We looked for a year for someone. So sometimes you sacrifice a little bit until you find the right person, but take that time. It really makes a difference.
It does.
Now, for those people who are not watching this and who may be listening to this interview, could you tell people what website they need to follow, what social media they need to follow in order to keep up with the company and also with each of you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So the first one is, I think, the main communication channel that we use the most, and the one that we have also dedicated time and people for to respond and everything directly, is Instagram. So at Cavalier_cigars. That's the easiest. You'll actually fall on Sarah. So she's very kind. If you have any questions, please reach out. Please feel free. Follow us there. We'll make sure to communicate, repost, do everything needed. And we appreciate everything you guys do there for us. And website would be cavalier-cigars.com. And that's just, general information. Please don't try to... We don't sell direct. We don't have anything there. So it's really informational, but there is also a contact email form. So if you have questions, it's another way to reach out. You just fall into the office instead of someone directly. So it's going to take a little more time usually. And then personal ones for me is Sebastian, Sebastien @AT Cavalier for Instagram.
And on my Instagram is BMO _Cavalier at Cavalier. Sorry. _@Cavalier.
It's always the weirdest thing when I read his. I try to read everything, and now you split it with the BMO @ so that works pretty well.
BMO @Cavalier. I don't even remember my Instagram because it's not about us at the end of the day. It's about everybody listening, everybody working in this factory. That's who it's all about. So
we appreciate
being on here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I know it's just an hour, but as we were talking about before the show, I feel like there's so many cigar podcasts that are like 2 or 3 hours long, and then there's no way to follow up within that same year or even with a year later, because it's like you've spoken about everything that needs to be spoken about. So hopefully you all will come back on in the near future, and because there's so much more about Cavalier that I know we didn't touch on, but hopefully people listening could take this as a little bit of a teaser to the Cavalier, and we'll look into your brand a little bit more. So definitely want to follow up, but thank you all for coming on and for sharing your story to this afternoon, and with everybody who's watching and listening.
We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for anybody who's watching this on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, make sure you hit that like button, the follow button. If you're listening to this on any of the podcasting platforms, just make sure you hit the subscribe button to be notified anytime we come out with new content. We try to do at least a show a week. We have some pretty good shows coming up in next month in May. And if this is your first show, then you're in luck, because there's about 84 different episodes for you to catch up on. So
you have a lot of work.
Yeah, there's plenty of stuff for you to catch up on and listen. And this interview, as well as all the other ones that I've done so far for Deep Cuts, will be on deepcutslive.com. So you can go there to get caught up on all the different interviews. And there's a few press releases for news from this industry as well. So I want to thank our guests for coming on and sharing this hour and 6 minutes with us. And I know that they have another little event, I think, this evening to get to. So we're going to let them go. And for everybody who's watching, like I said, thank you for watching and thank you for listening. And as I usually say at the end of these now, until next time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.